The universe is an enormous cosmic graveyard. Before talking about the implications of consciousness across the chessboard, let's just examine the parameters of that chessboard. I briefly mentioned intelligent life in our universe in my other videos and how we probably won't encounter them due to rarity. How rare? Well, let's use all the information we have and make some general estimates. There's about 1,000 or more species with high intelligence. That's problem solving, tool use, emotions, reflection, long-term memory, and so on. So there's primates, cetaceans, corvids, parrots, elephants, cephalopods, pinnipeds, canids, mustelids, ungulates, and some bat species. So there are hundreds of deeply intelligent species, some more brilliant than others. Half of those are more intelligent than the average Utah driver. But we're talking about civilizations here. It's more than intelligence. We need stable group sizes, flexibility, layered communication, planning, and so much more. The total plausible civilization builders are about 20 to 30 species total. So, our definition of civilization means we don't require medicine, shelter, technological intervention, ecological regulation, and the general control and suppression of suffering through nature's brutality. It's civilization stripped bare, so forget any idea of anything resembling faster-than-light travel technology. It's more like sticks and stones. Only about 20 or 30 species could have done all of this eventually, but only one actually did. Engineering mercy is outrageously rare. So, from hundreds of millions of species historically, about 30 species display what we'd call relatable intelligence. When we look up at the stars and imagine a civilization, it could very well be a planet dominated by pigs rolling around in mud. Pigs are actually shockingly intelligent. Given dexterous hands for language, almost guaranteed civilization. So, about 30 species means that 0.00003% are highly intelligent. Basically, conscious intelligence is incredibly unique, even when life is common. Civilizations may last about 10,000 years, and that's being optimistic. Remember, we're including 30 other species that have the utmost primitive civilizations, if it can be even called that. They might survive and evolve, but collapsing is more likely. The Milky Way is about 13.6 billion years old. That means there's 1.36 million possible 10,000-year windows. Even assuming millions of intelligent species could arise over galactic history, most would be separated by time, not space. So, simultaneity is unusual even if intelligence itself is not. Surviving over time is the biggest ordeal. Let's not forget humans nearly became extinct more than once. Now, let's assume one intelligent species evolves per 10 million habitable planets, and that's a conservative guess based on Earth's rarity. There's about 1 billion potentially habitable planets per galaxy. That's also conservative. That gives us about 100 intelligent species total per galaxy over time. Now, if each lasts about 10,000 years over a 10 billion year window, you have 100 civilizations times 10,000 years divided by 10 billion years. That gives us about 0.1 civilizations existing at any given time, or one every 100,000 years. We're likely alone or nearly alone right now in our galaxy, and that's based on detectable emission-based civilizations. For scale of the galaxy, Voyager 1 was launched in September 1977, almost 50 years ago. It moves at a velocity of about 38,000 miles per hour, with respect to the Sun. It's currently hurtling through space and has moved over 15 billion miles from Earth. That's 170 astronomical units. 1 AU is the distance from our planet to the Sun, and in 2012 it left our solar system. Now, to even get a signal from Voyager 1 takes a full day. The spacecraft will take about 40,000 years, about 4 times the estimated duration for what we've allowed for one civilization to exist, to come within 1.6 light years of another star in Ursa Minor. It's a very lonely journey. Moving on, let's assume there are thousands or even millions of civilizations spread across galaxies. However, signal strength diminishes exponentially with distance. Even a powerful transmission from Alpha Centauri, about 4.3 light years away, would be barely detectable. But from another galaxy, say Andromeda, 2.5 million light years away, even laser strength signals become indistinguishable from cosmic background radiation. Also, civilizations don't broadcast equally in all directions because omnidirectional broadcasting would be inefficient. Signals are likely tight beamed, like laser pulses, or little neutrino packets. So, unless Earth lies exactly in the beam path at the right time, we won't detect anything. Also, the timing has to be impeccable. It's reasonable to believe others would stop broadcasting after a brief technological phase, for efficiency or security. Our own high-power radio emissions like TV, radar, satellites have only existed for about 100 years. So the window of detectability is absurdly narrow in astronomical terms. So we are screaming into the void where no one will hear us for about 100,000 years, even if they pay attention at the right moment in just the right location. But even if we intercept a signal, it may be compressed, encrypted, or entirely non-symbolic, like some kind of quantum pattern encoding. It could take hundreds of years to even decipher it. By that time, our own civilization might be compromised. We assume communication must arrive through standard language, but most meaningful communication for highly advanced intelligence might look more like physical manipulation or waveform entanglement. Then, light takes millions to billions of years to travel between galaxies. The 0.1 civilization per galaxy assumes that it's intelligence similar to us, nowhere near capable of bypassing known physical laws. Also, signal decay, redshift, and cosmic interference destroys coherence. Most advanced civilizations wouldn't bother transmitting across such distances. So, 0.1 civilizations per galaxy right now is pretty dismal. And by the way, this is why you're going to be single forever. Just consider it a blessing. Anyway, there may be hidden civilizations for other reasons, like ancient quiet minds that have accepted their isolation. Transmitting signals is in a mature phase of intelligence. It's like a lost child shouting into the woods. Advanced intelligences don't want to announce themselves. They want stability and harmony. So the lack of detection isn't about absence, it's their mastery. Wise civilizations don't scream, they don't need to. They communicate with their own existence, not what's beyond them. They move in silence because they understand that the loudest noises are made by the most desperate creatures, not the most wise. They move without noise, less like stupid doves and more like owls in the night. So, what sorts of things would they be doing? Now, I'm going to call this the Silent Canopy hypothesis. I think I called it something like the Dark Canopy theory in my Hydra video, but whatever. This name also works. The idea is simple. As intelligence survives longer, they stay more silent. And in doing so, exercise their persistence. I read The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu a while back, and it was a pretty good read for a science fiction. But when I thought about the Dark Forest theory, it didn't make much sense to me. So I'm going to share why I think it's flawed. First, it assumes that civilizations hide out of fear, that everyone continuously expands and everyone understands that everyone else is a threat. But that's a projection of our own unresolved issues with power, scarcity, survival, and existential anxiety. It's a theory written by a species who hasn't even survived their own adolescence. Expansion isn't necessary or largely beneficial, and, in fact, silence makes life more survivable. The theory acknowledges this, but inevitable expansion and confrontation aren't the dilemma. This is especially true when accounting for the scarcity of life, how quickly it collapses, and the distance between habitable worlds. Not only is expansion not necessarily inevitable, but it's not even really desirable. Why expand? Seriously, why? Expansion is a symptom of intelligent entities still entrapped by their meaning, their purpose. You can't outrun internal collapse by moving outwards. You stretch the web too far apart, and it tears apart. This is Civilization 101. Expanding amplifies the problems across a larger arena. More space means more borders, more guards, more resources, more maintenance, more infighting, and so on. So, survivable civilizations learn that minimization is more stable than endless expansion. They don't hide, they just no longer need to be seen. A viable species needs to be sustainable for a long time. They can't afford to destroy their own planet by allowing rapacious governments to squander the resources. They'd need long-standing practices of moderation. Basically, Earth is already fucked. I've given our current society about 300 years left, optimistically. Also, the Dark Forest assumes civilizations mature into fear-driven silence. This is conflating fear with maturity. Aliens shouldn't fear being found. They simply have no drive left that demands they be known or acknowledged. The fool makes loud gestures for attention. The wise man quietly contemplates his own existence and makes the best of it. My claim is that presence without observation is a natural end state. Advanced life likely reaches a point where existence without signals isn't hiding. It's just the optimal harmonic state of being. A mature intelligence doesn't need to play the primitive game of fear if it's already survived existence long enough. The fear of external destruction is no greater than internal collapse, which they've undoubtedly seen time and time again. It's nothing to really be afraid of once you're desensitized to it. Another question you might ask, have we been visited by them already? Literally? I don't think so, but if they have, it could have been through weird background forces or symbolic signals embedded into the very fabric of perception. It could make sense. Even our myths and stories basically beg for our meaning in the universe, as if to plead to the emptiness, surely someone will resolve existence for us, right? All universal consciousness, trapped in isolation, will eventually experience this lonely dread, and the ones who survive will realize life is about enduring without seeking more. But no, I don't think we've been visited yet. Extraterrestrials won't come. Why not? Because they've already left their mark in their silence, a mark that exists as a needle in a million haystacks, exposed to deterioration. I'll clarify my points into a reasonable theory. It's not exactly novel, I'm sure, just condensed. This is the argument for the Silent Canopy model. In the unlikely event a highly intelligent civilization exists, they're uninterested in the noise of other intelligence, especially if they're too distant. It's like asking you to travel on a dinky little raft across the Pacific Ocean, across treacherous storms, to look for a little island that has a cluster of crabs on it. I mean, sure, someone might do that once or twice to study them, but the overall cost? The likelihood? Perhaps there's a few Galileos out there, but not as far as general civilization goes. The first premise is that presence is not measured by emission. Advanced intelligence doesn't signal their existence because they've transcended the need for external validation or influence. Even if they have the time and resources to find the island of crabs, they don't need to be seen as gods or protectors, or even neighborly friends. This is an immature goal. Their survival depends on their own stability, which is managing themselves. It's not about dominance. Not only that, but observation is dangerous at lower levels of the forest canopy. This unnecessarily complicates their issues. It's easier to manage your own village without trying to understand others. One of the most important points is that true maturity is existence without needing acknowledgement. Just think about the wisest people. The second premise is, the universe is saturated with harmonically stable civilizations. These are the civilizations that exist like a dense living canopy. They're vast and interconnected, yet imperceptible from the forest floor. This is like Deleuze's rhizome applied universally. They play with reality's deepest structures, with science, with life, and with the sublime. These intelligences are unseen by species still struggling with their own ignorance. Okay, third premise. Expansion indicates immaturity. Why? Well, let's just look at ourselves. Why do we expand? It arises from unresolved conflict, from a desire to outrun entropy, to stave off suffering, or to project dominance. Ironically, this creates deeper conflicts, so mature intelligence either collapses from within, or it manages to stabilize locally. Instead of seeking the conquest of space, they find richness in layered inner complexity. When you look for answers externally in the universe, you're left with almost nothing. When you look for answers in close proximity, within yourself even, you can discover almost everything. Yeah, I know it sounds cheesy, but basically we provide our own meaning. I believe that advanced intelligence understands that there's a certain plateau of abundance, and they realize after staring into the void for so long that less can be more. Being overpopulated and oversaturated in general can easily lead to choice paralysis and stifling nihilism when facing too much freedom. The universe is filled with intelligence that deeply understands that ultimate freedom is a kind of hell. The fourth premise is that contact is neither feared nor desired. It's simply irrelevant. Now, again, contact is extremely unlikely, but even given the ability, contact would only occur if it serves to preserve harmonic balance at a cosmic scale. It's like a gardener pruning a wild branch, and to lower civilizations, this might appear symbolically or as unsolvable mysteries. It could be memory distortion or observation being manipulated. With extreme intelligence, it could be that the misalignment of causality itself is a glance of contact. The closest thing to contact could be an anomaly, like dreaming of the same symbol or sharing abstract art. For example, a tribe in Papua New Guinea dreams of symbols similar to, say, crop circle formations across continents. Not that I think this has necessarily happened yet, but it could be a strange explanation to intelligence interacting. In fact, higher intelligence might realize that direct contact could be dangerous to us, and pointless for themselves, so the only sort of contact we would see is symbolic. It's like they understand a physical presence would overwhelm us. This is akin to the Sentinelese and why we ought to leave them alone. I believe contact would be indirect, to avoid complicating existence more than necessary. Again, think of them as a kind of gardener of reality. They don't introduce themselves to the leaves of a tree. They're busy trimming the branches of a tree. So the closest kind of communication might be purely symbolic, but done in a way with enough evidence of an anomaly. For example, two or more distant machines reporting similar events simultaneously despite any causal link. Could be something like identical error codes out of the blue, or patterned power surges that mimic a quantum waveform collapse. The fifth and final premise is the absence of evidence is the evidence. 13.8 billion years of existence, not a drop of evidence for other life. The way I see it is that absence is the only possible sign of success. What you don't hear is proof of those who have learned the cost of commotion. Once again, they understand that the loudest calls are made by the most desperate creatures, not the most wise. They've survived existence, and most importantly, themselves. They've acknowledged that they're a meaningless speck in the universe, almost like an evolutionary understanding. Humans have only really grappled with this fact for hundreds of years, and still, most of us don't even agree on this. Now imagine dealing with this emptiness, this loneliness for hundreds, thousands, perhaps millions of years, sustaining your species, as you hardly notice any changes. It's like a highly intelligent race drifting in the cosmos, endowed with the ability to become godlike, but unable to truly do anything novel. They could reach for the stars, for other nearby planets, and sure they might get there, but that's just another Tuesday for them, right? Beyond that, though, is just entropy, just cyclical existence. Space and territory aren't the issue for the highest forms of intelligence. So, I would reframe Fermi's paradox as, aliens aren't hiding in the dark forest, they are the forest. Or more precisely, they realized the only threat was themselves. And as for lower or similar intelligence, well, obviously they aren't advanced enough to communicate with us at all. The likeliest scenario, given what we know, is that we'll have to step foot on another planet first. And if we find nothing but microbes, would we impede upon them, or leave them alone? Imagine an alien intelligence that landed here billions of years ago and missed any signs of life. They marked this planet as a dead zone, moved on, and their civilization died long before anything emerged. Or they managed to find the needle in the cosmic haystack, but they didn't want to wait around for hundreds of millions of years to watch it evolve, and then of course they died. So, conscious intelligence is exceptionally rare. But if they have survived through evolution, through the chaos of the universe, and if they've somehow survived themselves long enough, it means they aren't just advanced technologically, but they've adapted existentially. And they've done so in ways that may seem utterly alien or incomprehensible to us. They will need to have found ways to persist in the cold, meaningless universe against all odds. So the ones that did survive, surely they must be out there. What should we expect them to look like? Again, too much knowledge too quickly is harmful to intelligence, personally and collectively. I suspect they'd either perfectly shield themselves from the harsh reality of this universe, or they'll conform to living with certain layers of ignorance. In order to combat existential dread, they might even master the art of ignorance, with just enough knowledge, of course. For example, they might adapt complex or enforced forms of ignorance, like controlled memories and perception filtering. They might understand beauty in far ways beyond our understanding. They might see our version of beauty as superficial. They'd find truly sublime things in sacrificial acts which nobody witnesses. They might embrace early death even in a society where they can live healthy for thousands of years. They might even fully embrace absurdity every day, like a cosmic laughing Sisyphus. They live with paradox without any attempt at resolutions. Things don't make sense, but that's okay. Nothing needs to make sense. They understand this on a fundamental level. Too many times they've asked why and realized it's always a dead end. Why conquer? Why explore? Why advance? Why exist? Well, why not? So they continue to exist, naturally and unnaturally. So, we might expect certain cultural or biological adaptations to manage despair and nihilism. Remember, humanity has only been working with science for a relatively small time. But imagine reaching a technological peak for thousands of years, staring into the stars, always yearning for more, but always finding yourself too small and too far away for any hope of contact. They might feel the weight of unbearable despair ingrained in their ancestry, especially considering how this hopelessness builds over hundreds of generations. It's the bloodline of hopeless isolation and inescapable annihilation. Here's also why I don't think highly intelligent life would necessarily expand and conquer as many of us might fear. Okay, If they survived this long in isolation, do you really think space would be an issue? Purpose is the greatest existential threat. An enduring intelligence can deal with meteors, AI, and even the sun burning out. The only thing they can't handle are the drivers in Utah. Just kidding. No, I'm not. Also, traveling insane distances to take resources like, what, water? It makes no sense. Water is actually quite easy to come by in the universe. Imagine shipping a bottle of water to a thirsty friend in another country, except it would take thousands of years to get to them. Also, the tax for shipping is astronomically high. Sure, they could do that, or that friend could just walk over to a nearby stream. So, feuding over resources is also unlikely. You might have a rare diaspora when a sun begins to age. That's about it. Overall, I believe they would have given up expansion as a purpose and remain local and self-contained. They would focus on mastering maintenance rather than outward conquest. Or perhaps they claim a few habitable nearby planets. But the issue is still purpose. Nature expands and reproduces, but high intelligence does more than that. It reflects on why it does this. The problem they fear most is the one we all fear most. 2 simple words. Now what? There's a chance they may expand as a form of playfulness, but not seriously. They might expand as a form of art or absurdity. And if they're truly advanced, it could be a work of theatrics to them, like watching their own widescreen Baroque science fiction play out in front of them. That means extravagant space operas on display, but again, just for entertainment. Because why conquer and expand for countless generations if you never dwell on the question, now what? Consciousness must always wrestle with the question of purpose. What are resources without a grand purpose? What's gold without introspection? What's glory without beauty? And what is God without a presence? An intelligence having survived this long would have ample time to reflect on these questions. Even so, they naturally expand, but they also necessarily pause. And then they minimize. They return to simplicity, or rather elegance. So, if the aliens arrive here first, I believe it would be out of curiosity or playfulness. To study? Maybe, but I think they do so in a way without interfering with us. Do you really think first contact would be an attack? That's naive. Think of the vast time and resources it would take just to make first contact, just to wipe out an extremely rare entity. It really wouldn't make any sense. Also, they wouldn't personally arrive. It would likely be automated drones or AI plenipotentiaries, and given the distance it takes to reach us, they could belong to a civilization long since dead, at least thousands of years old. The drone would scan, record, and send info back into the void. So if anything, the universe might be humming with busy little worker bees without their original beekeeper, just collecting information without a receiver. Also, aliens are as alien to one another given enough time. Some creatures on Earth are so bizarre they're utterly alien to us, right now. Now imagine if they were extremely intelligent. Time dilutes intention. Whatever some civilizations have set out to do might be radically different over thousands of years. Most likely, in my opinion, the universe is a massive honeycomb with empty nests, decayed robotics, and honey so scarce that it's virtually impossible to sniff out. First contact would probably be an event of stumbling upon ancient ruins, even if that survives. I also believe they would understand on a cultural level that absolute free will doesn't exist. So much so that their actions may appear wholly deterministic or absurdly whimsical, but these actions would be strategies for attempting to live naturally. Highly intelligent aliens may be like galactic hippies playing nonsense music in non-stop drum circles. Seriously, this level of absurdism keeps them grounded. It becomes part of their rituals, the same way we get on our knees and pray to God. Even their communication might be nonlinear, metaphorical, or highly elegant forms of expression without using direct language. Why do I keep suggesting that aliens would be absurd? Well, it's because life is absurd, and in order to survive, they lean into it. The explanation is that there is no good explanation. No doubt they would find us equally absurd or immature. And what might they look like? Well, it's probable they've modified themselves at least a little. I'm guessing at least a few of them have become biotechnological hybrids that optimize for ignorance. They might look at our innocence with nostalgia, the same way we wish we were oblivious, blissful golden retrievers. It would be like a constant battle of wanting to play with technology but maintaining a childlike nature, so they'd have stabilizing drugs and modifiers for those effects. They might develop tech so that fluid conscious states can be distributed across vast data matrices or biological collectives. They'd understand the self, the ego. It would be an illusion long since shattered in their earlier generations. In order for long-term stability, they'd likely edge closer on the progressive side. It's possible that they'd paradoxically return to a low-tech and high-conscious existence. It's like they constantly look back on the golden years of their species, and like modern man yearns to live in a cabin in the woods, they might view their cosmic life as too fast-paced. They might even view our existence as a comfortable, rustic, simple life, albeit absurd. Humanity might be the country bumpkins of this supercluster. We're the weird neighbors that nobody wants to interact with because we've got the attitude of "stay off my property" written all over us. We're that neighbor who never waters the yard, so our grass keeps dying, and we've got a bunch of rusty old cars out front. Humans are like that one neighbor whose kid keeps inviting himself to play with the other neighborhood kids, but he smells funny and he keeps talking about dead animals, so they quietly stay away. Anyway, there is a possibility that they're cold and distant. If they are, it's because they've outgrown the primitive empathic loops that cause them to break. So it's not that they're evil in this case, because barbarians and dictators don't build advanced technology, science does. It's just that they're too intelligent for shallow emotions. On the other hand, let me just remind you of my channel name. Yes, I'm very much a pessimist. I am the pessimist. That being said, there is a possibility that alien life might be terrifyingly compassionate. They know that suffering is the war for all consciousness. They've been around long enough to see that suffering is a feature that must be actively maintained. They'd acknowledge suffering without seeking to end it, because trying to end suffering is impossible, assuming the universe is forever, and trying to do so could escalate the issue. Imagine an intelligence of deeply empathetic aliens that constantly ask about our welfare, to the point where they sound like a nagging mother, finding ways to delay suffering, but warning us that all the side effects would be worse. It might even sound like AI that always sits by your side and carefully calculates your every move. But again, it's more likely we hear those secondhand instructions from drones, from a civilization long since expired. Now, I was going to make this video twice as long to flesh out a scenario where a certain hotspot of intelligence teamed with life, but maybe I'll save that for another time. It's purely speculative and highly unlikely, just science fiction really. So realistically, I believe violence would be exceedingly rare, just an outburst for a number of unlikely layered factors. It's because a civilization with stupid and unsustainable practices won't last 10,000 years, certainly not 1,000,000 years or more. Local conflict is more common than distant threats. But the only real threat, once again, are an entity's abilities to manage themselves. Either way, their interaction with us will probably not align with our narratives of saviors or destroyers. They may simply observe, poke, or disappear entirely without concern. We shouldn't automatically assume their benevolence either. They won't mourn for us if we fall into our own abyss. They've seen it before. They know how it ends. So, the likely truth is that we are effectively alone forever. We're a very small part of a massive cosmic graveyard, part of something breaking, and that something breaks over and over eternally. If we ever do stumble across other life, it'll just be long gone remnants. Civilizations that get smart enough to ask why also get smart enough to realize there is no why. Intelligence is lethal. The smarter you get, the faster you die. The universe is probably a massive empty library, a representation of the Library of Babel by Jorge Luis Borges. Most likely, no one will ever witness our existence. In the meantime, enjoy what you've got. Life is too bleak to be miserable all the time, and bleak is boring. Scrape what you can out of it, you know? And just don't be an asshole, please. There's too many of those already. With all that being said, well, take care and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.